Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. Mother-in-law and I don't get along great, but she isn't as bad as some of the mother-in-laws I read about. About 3 years ago, mother-in-law and her husband were invited to our house for a party. At some point, I went to my room and found her husband going through my drawer. He was clearly embarrassed and said she needed to change her clothes. She was having an issue. I wasn't totally sure I believe him, but I soon realized she was miscarrying and it was all over her clothes. I gave her a pair of my husband's sweatpants, and we ended up having to call an ambulance because it did not stop. She had some complication and was in the hospital for a couple of days. I did reach out and express condolences, but I was not happy about her husband sifting through my things. She told me she didn't want me to know because we aren't close. To me, stealing is still stealing. I banned him from my house, but I didn't tell them. Anyway, they now have an adorable 2-year-old girl. I have a baby of my own, and mother-in-law doesn't come around much because sister-in-law keeps her busy. So I consider that a win. We went to their house the other day for a 4th of July party. Mother-in-law has a much nicer house and is more into hosting, so it is natural to go there, and I don't think she realizes he is banned. My husband, without thinking, started talking about how we are going to do a Christmas-themed first birthday for our son in December. He then got embarrassed and muttered maybe mother-in-law could come with sister-in-law. Mother-in-law was confused. So I told her that her partner still can't come because he tried to steal my pants. Mother-in-law got very upset and ended up kicking us out of her house and said we are banned. Her argument is it was an emergency and he was just going to grab a pair of plain black pants. She was wearing a pastel sundress, which was unwearable. My husband wants me to reconsider, but to me, stealing is a hard boundary. Yes, I think OP is an a-hole. 3 years ago, this man made a questionable decision in an emergency situation, and OP banned him from your house? He wasn't trying to steal from her. He was trying to help his partner and protect her because she didn't want OP to know what was going on. Then, at a function they are hosting, OP embarrasses him and brings up a 3-year-old and painful subject and finally discloses that she banned him from their home. That's just nonsense. Background: I am Scottish. My husband and his father are Finnish. Neither of us have siblings, and my parents died shortly after dear husband and I married. We have 4 now adult children and a beautiful granddaughter, who is going to inherit this mess. My father-in-law sees himself as a white knight, prancing about the countryside and rescuing damsels in distress. Sadly, he tends to attract, and in turn is attracted to, women with severe personality disorders. But that's what you get when you troll the local insane asylum for dates. Alone, they run the gamut from pure evil to mildly annoying, and yet together they squabble and engage in the kind of Machiavellian maneuvering that would put House of Cards to shame. To date, there have been 7 wives from around the globe, giving rise to the name of my mother-in-laws, the International House of C. 15 years ago, I was doing some work in rural Pakistan, helping to set up some internationally funded women's shelters. This is somewhat like pissing in the ocean and declaring you've solved world drought. I've a lot of respect for men and women who work in that field for a long time. They're fighting against a culture that thinks women's shelters are just brothels and there's no such thing as domestic A. I was quite lost. I'd been to Islamabad before, but never the rural areas near the Iranian border. Even with the security team, interpreters, and local guides, the area, attitudes, and culture was completely foreign to me, and I was struggling to comprehend. But in the shelter, there was one girl who spoke good English and took it upon herself to show me around, to help me understand the difficulties faced by women living in the area. We got along really well, and she ended up confiding in me about the things she'd been through. She thought it would help me to understand the kind of horror women in that area are subjected to. At 14, her parents had sold her to her cousin, who was in his 50s, to become his wife. When she initially refused, she was B. When she tried to run away, Her mother and father asked her brother to regain their family's honor by K her. As the eldest, it was his duty. As he was strangling her, she kicked him in the bollocks and ran, with nothing but her nightgown. For a few years she stole, begged, lived on the streets, was B by police, R, and arrested multiple times. At the end of our stay, with regrets, I left her with my business card and told her to call me if she ever needed anything. She never called. About 6 months later, we were back setting up another shelter further north, and I decided to stop by the old shelter to see how they were getting on. It was closed, having been shot up and firebombed a few weeks earlier. Word had gotten around that the foreigners were back in town, and as we were leaving for the night, she ran up to our convoy to say hello. She was back to begging and living on the streets. I made the executive decision to take her back to our hotel and let her have a shower and a good feed, something she'd clearly not done in months. It was awful for me to see a child with so much potential be lost to barbarity. So I called up dear husband for his words of wisdom, and he told me to just get her out of there as soon as I could. So I did, and brought her back to Finland on a tourist visa until we could figure something out. We ended up employing her as our nanny and paying for a private education in exchange for some light housekeeping duties and some occasional babysitting. Eventually, she became a naturalized citizen and got her degree in child development. Turns out, taking in lost children is a habit of mine I just can't seem to shake. And that's how I met my housekeeper, though she's more like a little sister to me than anything else. Housekeeper is pregnant right now. She and her wife decided to go through insemination to have a child, something that she's always wanted. Unfortunately, she made the terrible mistake of posting an announcement on Facebook. One of her brothers has been on her friends list for years and she never knew. About a month ago, who wanted to let us know that there were 2 guys and an elderly couple in town questioning people, trying to find out where housekeeper was living. I sent dear husband to be my spy, and he found out that it was housekeeper's parents and brothers who were looking for housekeeper. So Double O dear husband played the super spy and took them to a coffee shop for a cup of tea to play the sympathetic stranger just trying to help. They told him that their daughter had run away a long time ago, but they finally found out where she was living and that she was about to have a baby that they would need to raise. Housekeeper's wife went to the police, who can't do anything, whilst I took housekeeper with me on my latest business trip to the UK to keep her safe. God knows what they would do if they found her. Turns out, this was a good thing, as a week later someone clearly spilled the beans and they appeared at our front door, eager to confront housekeeper. Housekeeper and her wife live in a house on our property that used to be our old house before we built the one we're living in now. They were most pissed when dear husband answered the door, as they knew they'd been duped. This aged little Middle Eastern woman tried threatening my darling beloved, though he's not usually intimidated by women that shout at his belly button. She started telling her minion sons to attack dear husband in Pashto, not knowing that my husband speaks conversational Pashto. He does a lot of work in the Middle East and speaks conversational Pashto, Arabic, and Urdu. Dear husband said he politely told them to leave, which is dear husband code, meaning that he told them to duck off and boil their heads in a bucket of whale s, and then slammed the door in their face. After they left, he took the video from our CCTV camera to the police, who warned housekeeper's family to stay away. Well, they didn't listen and kept coming back. The sons threw stones through our greenhouse windows and were caught on camera because they are that stupid. Housekeeper's mother poured salt all over our lawn, and now the grass is dying. One of the sons was caught on camera walking up to dear husband's car, popping open the cover for the petrol tank, opening the cap on the hole, and yes, he pissed into it, whilst staring at the security camera trained on our driveway. Dear husband kept going back and forth to the police with housekeeper's wife. Still nothing. And then, about 3 days later, from off camera, a vodka bottle full of petroleum with a flaming rag in it was thrown at our front door. It didn't catch fire because, despite what you see on TV, petrol is actually pretty hard to burn. The liquid petrol just put the rag out. So the husband wandered tentatively up to our front door and was right there, on camera, with a lighter, for a good 5 minutes, trying to set the pool of petrol on fire, whilst the little guano demon stood at the end of the driveway, playing the most conspicuous lookout in all of human history. Duckers tried to Molotov cocktail us in our home country. On the upside, mother-in-law number 4 asked why the petrol didn't set on fire, and dear husband responded, "It's my house. The petrol knows better." Mother-in-law 4 got confused and now keeps asking how the petrol knows when to burn. One of the coppers, who we all know well thanks to our mother-in-laws, told dear husband that the brothers and husband had refused to talk, but the mother-in-law wouldn't shut up, and had told the officer and the interpreter that the daughter had come to Finland to be dear husband's W, and the baby wasn't safe with housekeeper, so they had to come to our island to take it home with them. They were told to leave the island and never come back, and if they did, they would be charged with attempted arson, destruction of property, and a load of other things. So they went home just over 2 weeks ago. It is only a matter of time before they come back, and just like mother-in-law number 5, there's very little the police can do to stop them, even if they were banned from coming back to the island. Like mother-in-law number 5, it is very easy to get back in. I once went through every Nordic country, including Denmark, without once being asked for a passport. We've got our lawyers working on a restraining order, but it's difficult, as they're not from this country. So where were housekeeper and myself during this time? Well, I had to work in the UK and took housekeeper with me. My business owns a number of properties in various cities around the UK that primarily serve as income generation, so they are rented out to university students and young people, etc., and looked after by a property management company. Each has a room that is left free, which is used by myself and my staff instead of a hotel. It's cheaper, works better when you're staying in one place for a month at a time, and has the added benefit of being revenue neutral. All we have to do is call up the property service company and tell them we'll be staying for a certain amount of time. They send over someone to clean up the rooms and inform the tenants, and we pick up the keys from their local office. So we spent a week in London, 2 weeks in Manchester, then a week near Newcastle. Now, the house near Newcastle only has one tenant who lives on the ground floor. He and his fiancée live there rent-free as he maintains my private server, which is housed on the second floor. It has a few added benefits, but mostly I run my connection through a UK-based server for 3 reasons. 1. So that most of my search results turn up as English language sites, as my Finnish sucks so bad I can't even find the "Translate this page to English" button on most websites. 2. So the search results that turn up are British ones. A lot easier to do online research for the area that you're working in, etc. And 3. So mother-in-law number 5 can't track us, and even when she does hire people to track us, the connection comes back as being registered to someone else in the UK. That's right, I have to protect my internet connection for mother-in-law number 5, as she has hired people to send us phishing emails and track our phones and IPs before. I've known the young man who lives in the Northeast house since he was in his late teens. So when we got there, we took him and his fiancée out for a meal. Whilst we were out, he told me about this strange woman who turned up a few months ago trying to get onto the second floor, who knew all about my server and was there to give it a service. But when he wouldn't let her in, she went away, saying she'd made a mistake and was at the wrong house. Because there are so many houses in that suburban area that contain foreign businesses' private servers, I filed it away as suspicious and moved on. At the end of the week, we decided to go up to the house in Edinburgh for a week of R&R before housekeeper had to be back for a neonatal appointment. But when I called up the property services company, they were confused. One of my employees was staying at the property, and actually, they'd like to talk to me about that, because they've had a number of complaints from the tenants that my employee was being bossy and telling them what to do and how to live, and trying to drive a wedge into their close-knit friendship group. I too was confused, as the only other member of my staff in the UK was working in Liverpool at the time. But the modus operandi sounded familiar. Now would be a good time to mention that no one has heard from mother-in-law number 1 since before Christmas. She didn't turn up for Christmas or New Year's, and she hasn't called anyone in the family for a good few months. The last sighting of her was when she took mother-in-law number 4 and mother-in-law number 6 out to lunch in September. So we spent a week in a hotel in Dunbarton instead. I called her up to ask what the hell she was playing at, and she said that my property is her property, and her fiancé, current victim, were on vacation. So that's what's going on at the moment. Well, at least with mother-in-law number 1 and housekeeper. Can't get mother-in-law number 1 to leave by asking politely. And whilst I could evict her, dear husband and I agree that poking that bear is not worth it. In particularly as when this bear gets mad, it mauls off faces. Transferred the current tenants to a newer, nicer house that was being renovated in the same area, and let them have 6 months of free rent for the trouble of having to live with my mother-in-law for 4 weeks. And now it's just a case of waiting to see what happens with housekeeper and her parents. Shockingly, she doesn't want to see or talk to the people who sanctioned her M because she didn't want to be R by a man 40 years older than him. But there's little to be done about her FOO until they come back and harm someone. That kind of stress is not something she needs, especially while making a tiny human. But there's nothing else we can do, save trying to make their home as secure as possible. It is repulsive to me that just with mother-in-law number 5, the police can't do anything about harassment and stalking until something bad actually happens. Any advice is welcome. They tried to burn OP's house down. The police saying they can't help after that. They just don't want to because they are foreigners, and it would be a lot of paperwork.